Once again, it's time for the Russell Brown Show and this advanced 3D tutorial that's all about working with Adobe Photoshop CS4 Extended. In this tutorial, I'm going to take this standard 2D image and make it come back to life. I'm going to do that with a single layered document, and then I'm going to combine that with a grayscale depth map as you see here. I'm going to demonstrate how to create this depth map directly from the image itself. Then we're going to, with a new feature in CS4, convert a grayscale image to a mesh as you see here. We will then apply the color image onto this mesh to get the results that look like this. Looks a bit strange here, but when you flatten that out and apply a rendering setting of red, blue, an anaglyphic preview, and you place on your 3D glasses, you can then see this image come back to life. Not only can you see it in this anaglyphic preview, you can also export this as a lenticular image and bring it into the real world and share it with your friends. Okay, how did he do this? Let's roll back in time to my original 2D image. Close this down and start here in my Layers tabbed panel. As you can see, I have one single layer. Okay, advanced users, here we go. We're moving to the Channels tabbed panel right here because this is where I'm going to start to generate this grayscale image, which will represent the depth map we can use in this process. Now, you could paint a depth map, but I find it's always helpful to take a look at the red, green, and blue channels for your image, and you might be able to use one of those to assist you in this process. In this case, it's the red channel because the turtle and the reef are made up of lighter shades. When you're working with a process like this, light values come forward, dark values drop back. This is a perfect image. Okay, let's continue. If I select the red channel, drag it down here to the base, I can duplicate it. And now I can start to work on it. My first step is to select this tool from my tool palette, the Quick Select tool. I'm going to drop the brush size down a bit with my close bracket so I can go through here and click and select the turtle, just like this. Okay, so we've got that selected. And finally, I want to select the foreground as well. What I'm doing right now is selecting those regions that I want to protect. It looks great. So now, what I'm going to do is inverse my selection, and of course that's from the select menu, select inverse. So now we have this region selected, and I want to flood this with black. I'm selecting my D key on my keyboard to go back to my standard colors, and then I'm going to hold down the command key on the Macintosh or the control key on the PC and the delete key, and it floods that region with black. We can now deselect that. Remember, my edges are a little bit rough, but that's not a problem because we're going to blur this in the end. But this is a great start to a depth map. Next, using my levels control, Command L or Control L to bring these up, I'm going to flatten this image out because I find I can't have a true black in my image and I can't have a true white in this depth map image. I need to soften them a bit. So in this particular project, I'm going to set the black point to 60, and then I'm going to set the white point to 120. So a nice dark background here, a light foreground, but there are no true whites in this. And then I click OK. Now it's a little bit too sharp, too much detail for a depth map. So I'm now going to use the filter command, filter blur, and we're going to do a Gaussian blur on this. How much Gaussian blur are you going to do? Well, I'm going to blur it till it starts to look like that. In this particular case, it's about 20.2, but that's going to be based on your resolution. And by the way, this project is based on a 10 by 10 inch image at 150 dpi. I do not need to work at my final resolution for this project. I can work at a lower resolution and then scale it up at the end before I print it, especially for lenticular work. I'm now going to click OK. That is a pretty darn good looking depth map. It has all the nice quality of the foreground pulling the coral forward, also pulling the turtle forward, and it has some shading to it. Okay, we've got our depth map. I'm going to do a select all, Command A or Control A, and copy, Command C or Control C. Then we're going to go back to our Layers tabbed panel, and I'm going to do a paste. I'm going to paste this in so I have a new layer right here. So I have my image below and this grayscale image on top. Okay, here we go. The next step is to turn this into 3D. Going up to my 3D menu here at the top, I'm now going to go down here to a new feature called New Mesh from Grayscale. And in this case, I want to create a plane surface, a flat surface with dimension to it. As you can see, I can create a variety of other shapes, but for this project, a plane. I select this, and then we'll convert this into this 3D image based upon these grayscale values. There it is. We've converted our grayscale depth map into 3D space, and we've warped this mesh. I thought you might want to know that if you use this mesh to grayscale feature on a horizontal or vertical image, it will then reduce the size of the image within your work area. You can simply go over to your 3D scale tool and scale it back up. This particular scaling does not take place if you convert a square image, one of those mysteries of life I thought you should know. Here's a tip and technique. Here under the image menu, Mode, you can see that I'm currently running at 8 bits per channel. If I were to run at 16 bits per channel and create my depth map using the same process and then convert it to this mesh, I would get a smoother mesh and not so modeled as you see here. But for this project, I actually like the modeling that it's giving me because that can add more texture to my coral and to the turtle. Now you know. Back to our movie. Okay, let's get started, because the first thing I'm going to do is replace the diffuse image, which is linked to this layer. And it's right over here, under layer number 1. This image, when combined with the planar depth map that you see here, creates the effects. So the depth map creates this mesh, and layer 1, the diffuse image, represents the image that's on this map. So if we go in, select our turtle image, select all, and copy it, then go back here to our mesh, and if we actually replace layer number 1 here, I'm going to double click on layer 1, and you can see it here. And now if we paste the turtle into that location and actually replace it and merge down here within this layer, close this and save it, it will then miraculously go in and replace the image that was there and give us this image here. Now the lighting has changed because, of course, there are lights applied to this 3D surface, and there were no lights applied to the 2D image itself. Now it's simple to turn off those lights and to preview this in 3D by clicking here on the thumbnail, which will reveal our 3D scene and our tabbed panel. And within this panel are the rendering settings right here. Under render settings, I first can go to the face style and select unlit texture. This turns off the lights and reveals the image itself. And then finally, down here, I'm going to select this checkbox and display this in red blue to bring it to life. And then I'm going to adjust parallax. And in this situation, since I only have one layer in this document, I only need to adjust the parallax. I could adjust the focal plane, but I can get all of the effects I'm looking for with just a parallax value. In this case, I'm going to enter in a value of 100. It will really exaggerate the 3D qualities of this scene. So I'm going to enter in 100 now and select the OK button. If you have a pair of 3D glasses like I do right now, and I put these on, wow, it comes to life. We're now ready to convert this to a 3D lenticular image. I'm going to go back here to my render settings right there. And then down here under stereotype, I'm going to shift this from red-blue to vertical interlaced right there. Now I have a previous setting for 100 for my parallax. I'm going to leave that where it is. Under lenticular spacing, I'm going to leave that at 40 because my target lens is a 40 line per inch lens. I'm not going to make any adjustments to my focal plane at this time. That is just fine. All I do now is click OK. And of course, don't forget, your final step, of course, is with the crop tool, and you need to crop this to your final dimensions of your particular lens that you're working with. And in my case, I'm working with an 8-inch by 10-inch lens, and my printer requires a 600 pixel per inch setting so that when I click and drag over my surface, I can then create the exact size and the exact resolution necessary for a high quality lenticular image. Don't forget, when you do double click inside this cropped region, that you must make sure that the hide button here at the top has been selected. You need to retain all of the image area outside of this cropped region. Now you know. Okay, there you go. Another great new feature found in Adobe Photoshop CS4 Extended.